Hey, everybody. Good evening. You're listening to the Total Basis Podcast. I am your host, Felipe, and with me, as always, is Austin Spiro. Austin, how you doing this evening?
I'm all right, man. I'm all right. Excited to talk some Hall of Fame. It's been a while since I've been on the actual show, and not the Express show. So this will be fun.
Yeah, this is weird. Like, is this the Express show? Is this the real show? Is this the fake show? Doesn't matter. It's all Total Basis. We cover all the bases, just like Babe Ruth used to back in the 1920s. Speaking of Babe Ruth, our Ruthian guest, Kevin Miller, as always. How you doing, man?
Man, I haven't been called Ruthian since my slow pitch softball days, but I'll take it.
Speaking of Ruth, the Puerto Rican Babe Ruth, Melvin is also in the comments below, just in time to talk about the Baseball Hall of Fame. Let us know who your 10 guys would be, not V. Again, I talked about the nuns off the air earlier today, didn't I? Tell us who your 10 guys would be, who you would vote for if you had a vote. We will disclose our votes in just a minute or so, or 20 or 30 minutes from now. But yeah, you get 10 people to choose from at maximum, minimum, I guess 1 or maybe 0. I'm pretty sure there's 0. There's some writers who decided to vote for 0 candidates this year because they're jerks like that. I don't know, man. My philosophy is you give me 10 guys to name, I'm going to name you 10 guys. I will always maximize my efforts in that regard. So I don't know. Everybody has different philosophies, but that's my theory. All right. Well, you know what this means. The most popular portion of the show, the star of the show, the spreadsheets. Not as much color as I've done in the past. I figure keep it simple. I start from the bottom and then we go to the top and rank based on Fangraphs 4, ranked number 250th overall on this list from 1985 to 2020, minimum 5,000 plate appearances. It's all color coordinated, so that means blue is really bad. Yellow is middle of the road, and then hot red is just the amazing player wisening in the Hall of Fame already, and that steroids do work. But I got Mike Napoli at the very bottom of the list. I would have loved to have gotten rid of some of these guys with a 21 WAR, wins above replacement, according to Fangraphs' definition of that metric. But I had to leave Mike Napoli on deck. So who's talking about Mike Napoli today?
That would be me. Of course, he's a former Angel. I had to scoop up Mike Napoli for this. Mike Napoli started with the Angels, and then eventually moved on from the Angels. Started his career on the Angels, and then moved to, I believe it was Cleveland. After that, and let me pull up his page.
He was with the Red Sox too, by the way.
Texas.
He went after the Angels. So he spent his first 4 or 5 seasons with the Angels. Then he went to Texas, a couple years with Boston, won a World Series with them, and then finished off his career in Cleveland and then back to Texas. Power hitter, power threat while he was there. Above average bat. Didn't play long enough, only 12 years. Something that I thought was really interesting while I was doing my research was Mike Napoli played most of his career with a severe obstructive sleep apnea.
Oh, wow.
And it was to the point where the Red Sox in 2013 had a designated spot in the locker room for Mike Napoli to get his rest before the game because he just flat out could not sleep.
Wow.
I guess it was so bad that he was afraid to go to sleep. He left his hotel rooms unlatched and unlocked just in case paramedics had to come in.
Jesus.
Died while he slept. He knew he had this and didn't have any surgery done until 2015, which I thought was really interesting because when you look at his career trajectory, I mean, he was a power threat for most of the years that he played. He hit somewhere between, 15 to 30 homers for the most part. And then about the time he hit Boston, you started seeing his home run production dwindle. In 2015, he went to Texas, hit 20 homers, but then, or not 20, he hit 18 homers. And then in 2016, he went to Cleveland the year after his surgery, hits 34 homers. Then he goes back to Texas, hits 29 homers. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But by that time, he was 35 years old, retired, started as a catcher, went to first base. So, he was never a high batting average guy. But he also had the party at Napoli's. during the World Series while he was with Cleveland. He was a cool guy. He has a really tight relationship with his mom too. So just good overall guy, bearded, tatted, really cool guy to be around, and good baseball player, good career, but in my opinion, not Hall of Fame career. Only one All-Star year, that was in 2012. Other than that, no hardware. Yeah, that's pretty much sums up Mike Napoli. Good career, but not a Hall of Fame career.
All right, let's quickly move on as we try to give as much spotlight to the first year guys on the ballot. But I gotta say this, man, the baseball ballot, they need to change or do something with it, because it seems like they're trying to just put as many names on the list as possible. I started thinking, like, how does the Pro Football Hall of Fame do it? How does the Hockey Hall of Fame do it? And how does the Basketball Hall of Fame do it? And I feel like they don't just put you on the ballot just because you're retired 5 years. It's been 5 years since your retirement. There has to be, I don't know, there has to be a better way. What's up, Kevin? Go ahead.
Well, I know in the NFL, there's some, I don't know exactly how it works, but there is a preliminary ballot just to be nominated.
Yeah, it goes from like 15 and down to 6 or 7. I mean, that, and we're talking about elite players, like elite players, not just guys who retired 5 years ago. So we're gonna put them on the ballot because
You mean not Mike Napoli?
not my Napolis of the world, or in this case, the Andre Ethiers of the world. I was gonna ask you guys who would be the sentimental favorite, but it's a long. Well, first of all, I had to zoom in my spreadsheet, so I can't fit both guys in one screen, Mike Napoli and Andre Ethier. So Andre Ethier is going to be flying solo here. Who was going to talk about Andre Ethier today?
That's me.
All right, perfect. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Andre Ethier is kind of an interesting case. Just spoiler alert, I don't believe he should be a Hall of Famer, but he was a guy who kind of looked like he might have been on the trajectory early in his career. He was a good bat, middle of the order for the Dodgers. It wasn't necessarily the Dodgers' best years, but he was really good. Actually won a couple Gold Gloves, I believe, as well in the outfield. But injuries kind of just ruined that for him. He was a guy that had back issues and knee issues and shoulder issues. Basically, if you could injure something, Andre Ethier injured it at some point, potentially multiple times. Once he got to about age 29, his career was basically over in terms of big production. Just looking at his numbers here, he hit 20 home runs as a 30-year-old, and then after that, he never reached that number again. He was a good player, but not a guy that had the longevity that you would require for the Hall of Fame, especially when you consider that the last 5 or 6 years of his career, especially, were plagued by injury.
I like that he didn't have the longevity, but he played 12 years. It's crazy. I will admit that I did have to drop to 5,000 plate appearances to account for guys like Mike Napoli and Andre Ethier. So I think the last time we did this, Austin, I only had to do it for 6,000 plate appearances, and I forgot who the culprit was that forced me to do it last time.
Albert Bell.
Oh, that's right. Yes, good memory. Thank you. But yeah, I guess it's an issue of durability and not so much longevity. I mean, 12 years is a long time. Would you guys agree with me on that one at least?
I mean,
sure.
It's longer than I played.
Yeah, but several of those years weren't anywhere close to full seasons. So I think that's part of what I mean with the longevity.
Yeah.
He got on the field
for both
a little
Napoli
bit,
and Ethier. Napoli had some injury riddled seasons too.
Sure.
The last 4 seasons for Andre Ethier, he played in 310 games. The last 4 seasons, he played 310 games. So what is that? Less than 100 games per season, it looks like, right? Oh, it's actually 78 games per season from 2014 to 2017.
On top of that, Andre Ethier was also, remember, the Dodgers for a long time had a log jam out in outfield. You had Ethier, you had Puig, you had Matt Kemp, it just seemed like they had 7 outfielders. They just had the market.
Van Slyke.
Yeah, Scott Van Slyke, Scott, because I keep thinking Andy, but it's Scott. No. Scott Van Slyke. You had so many.
Carl Crawford came in.
Crawford, that was the other one. And they were just high paid, very popular, but they all played the outfield, so they all couldn't play. And Andre Ethier with his injuries ended up being like the 4th or 5th outfielder.
Someone mentioned you mentioned Yasiel Puig, but you mispronounced it. It's not Puig, it's Oh boy, my metal. Oh, not my voice isn't there for my metal scream. Sorry about that, guys. I thought I had it in me. Jacob says
Like you were taking a dump.
I mean, that was my intent, but it was supposed to be more coherent. We anyway. Jacob says spreadsheet Felipe has arrived. Goddamn right I have. As always, I have several spreadsheets to show you. Mike Harvey's also on the chat, or at least listening, tuning in this evening. Thank you guys for tuning in this evening to talk some Hall of Fame baseball with us. So we agree that Napoli in eighth year probably did not deserve to be on the ballot, but I think it's whatever. JJ Hardy, Johnny Peralta. So I was gonna throw you guys a curveball rather than tell me who, individually give me what you guys found out about these guys. Let's start with Austin. I want just give me a sentimental favorite here. Both of these guys were infielders, mostly shortstop, I'm assuming. Who would you like to see get into the Hall of Fame just because? Johnny Peralta or JJ Hardy?
Out of these two, based
Out of
on
these
what
two.
I remember, probably Peralta.
Okay. Any reason?
No. I remember hearing more of Johnny Peralta than I did of JJ Hardy. I think if I remember correctly, JJ Hardy was more of a defensive player than an offensive player. And Johnny Peralta just seemed to be more entertaining.
That's actually a good assessment in terms of just like the narrative base. I mean, I guess, and me being from the Midwest, I've actually heard more of JJ Hardy than Johnny Peralta because Hardy was with the Milwaukee Brewers for a long time. Well, by process of elimination and just to save us some time, who had Johnny Peralta?
I did.
All right, tell me something about Johnny Peralta.
Yeah, Peralta is one of the guys who had a good career, but was never excellent. Had a lot of pretty good seasons, even a couple years where he flashed some power. But he was a guy who doped. Johnny Peralta got caught using steroids.
Oh, well, then I changed my vote.
No, too late.
I didn't know that.
Too late. Yeah, so Peralta did get in trouble for PEDs. He didn't, from my recollection and what I was researching, he didn't seem to be one who fought it or tried to lie and be like, oh, well, somebody gave me a vitamin and they must have, laced it with steroids because, that happens all the time.
The whole hair thing with Fernando Tatis too, right?
I had
right.
ringworm.
Yeah. A special conditioner for Tatis. But the funny thing about Johnny Peralta is, and you'll notice it if you look on the spreadsheet, it's how he spells his name, right? It's JHONNY instead of JOHNNY. And he actually got really, really offended one time when asked about that.
Oh boy.
And he explained that in the Dominican, that's a common way to spell Johnny. I don't necessarily know if that's true or not. I'll take his word for it.
Yeah.
But he actually went on to say that the American spelling of JOHNNY is wrong and a travesty to the name. So
Ooh.
Johnny Peralta, very, very passionate about the way he spells his name.
Damn.
So don't get it wrong.
I'm assuming Raheel is saying that Johnny Peralta was caught with steroids because he's a Cardinal, right? I think that's the gist of it. So if you go to the Cardinals, you're a cheater.
I think he meant that I picked Johnny Peralta because
I don't know, man. Cardinals are a bunch of cheaters down there in St. Louis. You don't trust any St. Louis Cardinals. Don't trust any St. Louis fans. I don't even trust Raheel, and he knows where I live now. So I always watch my back with those filthy Cardinal fans and filthy Cardinal players. All right. Well, what about Kevin? Let's ask you, Jacoby Ellsbury or JJ Hardy? Who would you want to see in the Hall of Fame for no reason, just because?
Ooh, that's tough. I think Ellsbury was better, but I loved JJ Hardy, man.
Wow.
He was really smooth at short, and he had a couple years where he was a really good bat. He's one of only a handful of shortstops who aren't in the Hall of Fame who won a Gold Glove and a Silver Slugger in the same year.
Oh, okay.
So, it's kind of an impressive feat. There's not that many non-Hall of Famers at the position who did that. Both Ellsbury and Hardy were really hampered by injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Ellsbury had knee and back, and I'm sure there were other things as well. I
believe he had head, shoulders, knees, and toes injuries, and eyes and ears and mouth
he
and
had
nose.
I think you're right with the head too, though. I think he had a concussion. I think he had a pretty bad concussion once. But if I had to pick between those two for the sake of the game, I'd say Ellsbury is a better player. Mm-hmm. But just personally, man, I loved watching JJ Hardy play short. I know he's not a Hall of Fame level player, but man, he was good when he was healthy. at shortstop and had a few good offensive years too. So I'd pick him just personally.
All right, let's move on as I'm really trying to just, and as you can see, once we leave Ellsbury with the 30 WAR, where's our next guy? Oh, Jason Worth. Is there anybody else on this list? No. Jason Worth with 36 WAR. I mean, look at those, the power, man. 360 on base percentage, 229 home runs, mid-level. I'm not saying it's impressive. It's just like in between, you know, Mr. I don't want to, I guess the word ordinary compared to these other guys is definitely warranted here. But Jason Worth, who had him on this one?
That's Kevin. That's not me.
Okay, Kevin's on mute. So Jason Worth, Kevin, do you have
Sorry.
anything?
Yeah. Jason Worth was one of the weirdest personalities in baseball.
He was.
It wasn't always in a bad way necessarily. You know,
Uh-huh.
there's some guys who are weird, like Greg Maddux, who peed on people. Like that's not good. You know, you don't want to be weird for peeing on people, but he was just an odd dude. There were lots of times where you know, a teammate would be doing an interview in the locker room and Jason Worth is just stripping naked in the background, and they'd have to like turn the cameras different directions because Jason Worth, whether on purpose or just because he was weird, was stripping on camera. There were times when I remember it was before this was super popular. I remember he was flicking sunflower seeds at a teammate doing a dugout interview, but it wasn't because he was trying to get people to laugh or anything. It was just because that's what he normally did. He was just an odd dude, but seemed to be for the most part pretty well liked across the league while he played. He was a very good player. I don't, you know, believe he's Hall of Fame worthy. I think he's the type of guy that, you know, I'm okay with being at the bottom of the ballot, you know, maybe off in a year, that kind of guy. But, you know, really, really good player at times. He played on both some really good teams and some really bad teams. He had the power speed combo, which is always entertaining. So Jason Worth, just kind of an interesting guy.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I forgot that he was always a threat to get to 2020 in certain years. Holy crap.
Wasn't Jason Worth the guy? I can't remember. Isn't Jason Worth there was an issue with his kid. His kid was always on the field.
You're thinking about Adam
LaRoche.
Yeah.
Oh, Adam LaRoche. That's it.
Yeah.
Another guy with
also a weird guy.
another guy with a big beard.
Oh yeah, those weird bearded. I mean, Adam Eaton was a supporter of that. He went on the radio when they decided that that the White Sox were no longer going to have Adam LaRoche and his son Draco along, that they needed to get rid of them. Actually, I believe they gave Adam LaRoche an ultimatum. It's you either keep your son at home or we got to get rid of you. And Adam LaRoche says, I'm just going to retire then. And Adam Eaton went on the weekend to the local sports radio show, called up and said, Drake LaRoche is a leader of the clubhouse, and it's a damn shame. Like, really, dude, a 13-year-old's a leader. No wonder the White Sox are such a joke. No wonder they suck ass so much. Speaking of sucking ass, I see a couple of Cardinals took offense to me calling them filthy. I always forget that my guy Mike on the chat, Mike Harvey, he's from Washington. I always forget he's a Cardinals fan. I always think he's a Mariners fan. No, but he's a Cardinals fan, which it's a shame. It's a real shame. We could be best friends, but he has to be a Cardinals fan. I also noticed that Raheel, I guess he has a disdain for the letter Y. He calls Ellsbury Jacob and Jason without the Y is a travesty. So it's a hell of a stance, man. Hell of a stance to be put in.
I am surprised just looking at the spreadsheet to see names like Don Mattingly and Tim Salmon and Juan Gonzalez and Derek Lee beneath Jason Worth. I find that interesting.
Yeah, I only went back to 1985. I think Don Mattingly played a lot longer than that. So that's the one thing I don't like about just picking random years. But again, we're only focusing on the Hall of Fame players. So the oldest guy, it has to be Gary Sheffield. So I think he started, and I wrote it down in 1988. So, I just went back to the 1985, because 5s and 0s, right? Nice round number. Sure. So the last guy who retired was in 2017. Obviously, 5 years have passed since the guys from 2017 retired. So I put it up to 2020 just to, 35 years of baseball right here on this spreadsheet. Is it 35? I can't do math, Austin. Help me out here.
I think it's more 45.
No,
I'm not even 1985.
I'm not even
to 2020.
No, that's 38 years.
Okay,
But
whatever.
no, it's 35.
I don't know. Anyway,
We can't do math, and we're doing a show about numbers, bro.
can't do math.
I'm not even 40. Okay.
You know what? You know what it is I'm distracted by because I really want to either really piss off the Yankee fans or make them really happy. According to the spreadsheet, Brett Gardner is better than Jason Worth.
They need to bring him back.
Hey, you need a left fielder.
This is why
He's
war.
available. He's ready.
This is why war is bullshit. That's why. All right, I could sit here all day and talk about the merits of war, but let's talk about some guys who are coming back to the ballot. Torrey Hunter and Omar Vizquel. Austin, let's just again, I'll ask you the sentimental question. Not that you would vote for them, but just for sentimentality, who would you want to see get into the Hall of Fame, Omar Vizquel or Torrey Hunter?
You can't ask me this question. I'm so biased here. I mean, I'm out of these two, I'm going to pick Torrey Hunter. Torrey Hunter, I really into a great glove. He had a pretty decent bat, and he's an overall pretty nice guy. I know there's I believe, if I remember correctly, somebody said there's inklings of him being a homophobe or transphobe, one of those phobes. I don't remember which one it is.
It's all the phobes.
Is it? It's whatever phobe. But Torrey Hunter was a very entertaining baseball player to watch. I always enjoy. He was the one who robbed Barry Bonds in the All-Star game.
Beautiful.
It was beautiful catch. Beautiful catch. Great glove with the Twins. Great glove with the Angels. Was a mentor. Him and Pujols were pretty good mentors to a very young Mike Trout. There was the triple T's while he was on there. Torrey, Trumbo, and Trout. Was great to watch. I loved it. Omar Vizquel in himself is a great player. I actually had him on the ballot last year to go in the Hall of Fame, and this year I have. I'll spoil it a little bit. I've changed my mind in terms of Omar Vizquel, but in terms of sentimentality, I'd pick Torrey Hunter.
Of course you did. Damn Homer fans. Mike says that I am dead to him. Damn.
That was harsh.
Well, there's like a little bit of a running joke that Mike might be a serial killer because he's out in the backwoods of Washington, and I think it was a joke that it hasn't picked up steam, but there's like a little bit of underlying that. So now I'm worried, like, oh, is he coming? Like, should I be watching my back? He has a Cardinals.
Yeah, that was a threat.
He is a Cardinals fan, and I did say that I always got to constantly look over my back because Cardinal fans, they'll just fly all over.
Check your computer data.
Nah. Oh wow. I forgot about Jimmy Rollins. Well, okay. Well, you know what, Kevin? Let's ask you now. Jimmy Rollins or Omar Vizquel? Who would you like to see in the Hall of Fame for sentimental reasons?
I mean, Jimmy Rollins. Omar Vizquel, much better defensive player, but Jimmy Rollins, much better offensive player, and wasn't some bad defensive player. You know, he wasn't a butcher at short by any means. I like Jimmy Rollins a lot. You know, I mean, going 30-30 from shortstop is really impressive. I don't necessarily think he should have won the MVP that year, but hey, that wasn't my call. Even though he's a Philly and I'm a Braves fan, I really liked Jimmy Rollins. Don't tell anyone I said that, which I guess that's too late. Cat's out of the bag. This is live. So I did like Jimmy Rollins. And I think he's undervalued as a career. He's a guy that doesn't get enough love, in my opinion.
And one of the few guys, if you ever look at the WAR metrics, you know, and they base it off the base running metric and the offensive runs above replacement, and basically Y, Z, and AA columns here in my spreadsheet. He's one of the few that actually gets all positive markers, you know, for both for base running, offense, and defense, and it's still only good enough to get him to 49.6 F4. So he can't even get over 50. What a failure. But I think this is the problem. No, Jimmy Rollins.
I know he's better than Omar Vizquel.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. I'd take Jimmy Rollins over Omar Vizquel twice on Sunday if I have to. But there's a problem right there. I found that, you guys, a 324 on base percentage in a league that was pushing for leadoff hitters to get a higher on base percentage. But of course, the Phillies were such an old school team with Charlie Manuel and then that bumblehead idiot. What's his name? Ruben Amaro Jr. I
Oh
think.
yeah.
Oh, well, he's the worst. I signed Delman Young because he got 69 RBIs last year or some stupid thing like that. And he's such a failure for the Phillies. I think it was Delman Young. Anyway, I'm getting angry just thinking about it. All right. Well, let's go with Austin. Jeff Kent or Todd Helton?
I really enjoyed watching Todd Helton. He made the Rockies bearable to watch. So I mean, there might be the Coors factor there, but I mean, it didn't matter to me. Todd Helton was very entertaining to watch. Big power threat for a very, very long time, and on base to go with it. He's got a 414 on base, really good on base for a power hitter. There really isn't anything beyond that. He just seemed to go out there and do his job and did it for a while. And I really appreciated the way he played the game. And yeah, my pick would be definitely Todd Helton. Jeff Kent, definitely some defensive struggles until he moved to second base. He was a much better defensive second baseman than he was. What did he start at? Third base? Yeah. I think
third base for the
started
Mets.
at third base. Really, really bad defensively, and I think that messed with him offensively as well. Once he got to second base, it seemed like it was way better. He was better defensively, and that's when he started becoming then he started having the third base hitter's profile at second base. So it was very interesting to watch. And he's a bit of a what if story to me. And the what if for me is, what if he moved to second earlier? Would we be in the conversation of, is Jeff Kent a Hall of Famer or not? His numbers may look a little better if he transferred to second, maybe a little earlier in his career.
I feel like his career turned around once he got to San Francisco. And whenever I see a player just resurrect his career in San Francisco, I keep thinking, Balco's not that far away from Candlestick or Pac Bell or whatever. And I stand corrected. He started his career with the Blue Jays. He did get traded to the Mets in that same season in 1992. Growing up as a Cub fan, that's how I remember Jeff Kent, that he started out with the Mets as a promising prospect, but just someone who wasn't consistent enough. But anyway, let's see. Let's move on to outfield really quick. Again, these players, we've talked about these guys. Oh, wow, there's 4 outfielders. Holy crap. All right, well then, let's see. You know what? Let's do this tournament style. Let's make it really hard. Kevin, Andruw Jones or Bobby Abreu? Who would you want to see in the Hall of Fame?
Come on.
For sentimental reasons.
Well, for sentimental reasons, it's really easy for me. For production, it's a lot harder because I think Bobby Abreu is outrageously underrated as a player. But as many know, I am a Braves fan. I am a champion for Andruw Jones being the greatest defensive center fielder of all time. I know there are other guys in that discussion, Willie Mays, et cetera. But when there is video evidence of Andruw Jones moving the direction the ball is going to be hit before contact is made, because he can tell based on the pitch and the swing pattern, that's special.
Yeah.
That's absolutely special. And according to Willie Mays himself, Andruw Jones is the greatest defensive center fielder to ever live.
Oh, wow.
So because of that, I view him the same way, because who am I to argue with Willie freaking Mays? So Andruw Jones, I believe, should be in the Hall of Fame. In addition to being the greatest defensive center fielder of all time, at minimum top 3, he also hit 434 home runs. I know his batting average and on base weren't super high. I know that, but he was a guy. I mean, he hit 51 home runs, finished second in MVP voting that year. I believe that was a Pujols win that season, which hard to argue against Albert Pujols. But, Andruw Jones was an offensive threat while being an absolutely elite defensive outfielder. So I don't understand why it's even a discussion as to whether or not he's in the Hall of Fame based on the field production. I do know that he was arrested for a domestic violence incident. That it's a little bit murky. We don't necessarily know why. It could have been a money thing. His wife did say that things went a little differently than what was reported, but who knows what actually happened. If he's guilty, I am much less inclined to give him my support if it went the way the arrest report said it did. Then I'm not. I don't want to support that. But if it was not as it appeared, then I don't see what the question is behind Andruw Jones's candidacy.
In the word of Scott Center, he's fat. You know how people that's a they mentioned Austin mentioned if Torrey Hunter, he couldn't figure out if he was transphobic or homophobic. I think he would best be described as homophobic, although I'm pretty sure he's transphobic. But there's such a thing as fat phobia nowadays, fat phobic. So when players get fat, people get offended by it for some reason. I don't know why. Yeah. James reminds us that Jeff Kent had one of the lamest injury excuses ever. The only injury I could think of is that he injured his wrist trying to get his ATV out of his pickup truck or something. You guys know anything else about Jeff Kent that I should know about that James is alluding to here?
I'm not aware of it. No.
I don't. I remember Sammy Sosa hurting a rib sneezing, supposedly.
No, he threw out his back sneezing, which, by the way, as I get older, that becomes a possibility every day for me. So I am not going to doubt Sammy Sosa actually hurt himself. But you know what? PEDs, man, they make you all bulky and stuff, but they leave you vulnerable in other places. Mike agrees about Andruw Jones with you, Kevin. So there you go. You get his approval. Meanwhile, he did admit that he is a serial killer and he's out to hunt me down. So I pissed off the wrong guy tonight. Speaking of pissing off the wrong guy tonight, Austin, I got to ask you. I got two of your favorite players up here. Manny Ramirez or Gary Sheffield. Sentimental reasons. Go pick one.
Is neither a choice?
No, you got to pick one. Gun to your head right now. Otherwise, you die.
Why did you pick the guy that's the most negative towards steroids to do this one? For sentimental reasons, I guess. I think because I watched him more, I'd pick Manny Ramirez. I mean, at least he cheated, but at least he had a personality to boot. He was a very weird character. He's the only outfielder that I've ever seen think that he was the cutoff guy.
Yeah.
I've never seen an outfielder do it. Not only did he think he was the cutoff, he thought Johnny Damon had such a bad throw he had to dive for it. And doesn't make any sense. Walking in and out of the Green Monster and all kinds of stuff. I mean, he started Mannywood in LA after that, but Gary Sheffield, Manny Ramirez, both great careers, but they both cheated. I think the difference between Manny Ramirez and Gary Sheffield is I watched him more and Manny Ramirez had more of a personality on the field.
I will say this about Gary Sheffield. To this day, one of my favorite batting stances to imitate with that little bat wiggle that he did, the right-handed version of Barry Bonds. Interesting. Both PED users. But no, seriously, I used to love imitating his batting stance as a kid. When I would just what do you call when you pitch to yourself? Is that called fungoing or?
Well, the fungo is when you use the fungo bat.
Never mind.
I was just playing baseball in the backyard when I did it.
But when you throw the pitch to yourself, you just kind of like toss it up in the air and then you swing as hard as you can. What is that called? Nothing.
I'm just messing around. I had home run derbies in my backyard like that.
Comment section, please tell me. I know I'm not the only guy who did that. I don't know what there has to be a specific name. Raheel says that's called being a Cubs fan when you play by yourself or whatever.
I gotta say, I think Gary Sheffield would be in my top 10 of I don't want to fight this guy. Not only was he big and strong and mean, but man, he was mean. He fought a fan. Way before Ron Artest, and nobody really cared.
Well, Gary Sheffield will do that. Yeah. It's like, he went into the lion's den and he got mauled. He was lucky to be alive though. So I think it's the same way that you're describing Gary Sheffield. Well, that's why they have fences around the zoo. That's why they have fences around netting between the stands and the field, so the fans don't interact too closely with the players. Oh well, it's just Gary Sheffield. Gary Sheffield's going to do Gary Sheffield things. Hey, really quick. I had a question for one of you guys, and it escaped. Oh well. Raheel saying someone got hurt doing the dishes. I don't know what that means. Was that Jeff Kent? I don't know, but it did bring back flashbacks of me getting injured while washing the dishes. So that is also not a joke. So
yeah, I broke my foot doing dishes.
Yeah, it's true story. It's a risk.
I was playing. I was practicing I was practicing baseball, and I went for a grounder. I was playing second. Baseball hit me in the foot, and as soon as the baseball hit me in the foot, my nose started bleeding. You tell me how that works.
It's a gunshot, man.
You think
I
it hit in the
know.
face?
No, it came anywhere close to hitting me in the face. It hit me in the inside of the foot, and my nose started bleeding.
That is one magic loogie. I tell you what, man. Oh boy, I got a couple of third basemen here, and then we can focus. Who asked Carlos Beltran?
Me.
Okay, hold on a minute. Then I'll ask Kevin. Kevin, sentimental reasons. Alex Rodriguez or Scott Rolen?
Good luck.
Well, I mean, we all know who the better player was, but I don't want to see A-Rod get in the Hall of Fame right now. That's not what I want. I think Scott Rolen is worthy.
Yeah.
So I've got no problem picking Scott Rolen here. I think he belongs. He was a very underrated player in his day. Another guy who was positive in base running, offensive and defensive value, heading towards his total WAR value. An elite defensive third baseman, probably top 5 defensive third baseman at all time or somewhere around there, and an above average offensive player too. If he wasn't on some of those bad Phillies teams and then wasn't playing second fiddle behind Pujols in St. Louis, he probably would have had a little bit more popularity to help out there. But I choose Scott Rolen because I think he's worthy, and as far as we know, clean. So
as far as we could tell. But you know me, man. Everybody's guilty until they're proven innocent. Damn it. Also, former Cardinal. That guy wore nothing but red uniforms. I just realized that. Right?
Cincinnati. Well, he played for the Blue Jays for a little bit.
Oh, that doesn't count. Well, Canada Day, they wear red.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Of course, Raheel is all about Scott Rolen making it to the Hall of Fame. You know what? Just because of that, I don't want to see Scott Rolen in the Hall of Fame now. Hey, speaking of former Cardinal, Carlos Beltran, one of his many teams, right? He used to play for the Cardinals a long time ago, right?
Right.
Yep.
This episode sucks. Way too many Cardinals players. Anyway,
and here I thought it was going to be dominated by Angels talk.
Oh yeah. Well, we still got pitchers to talk about, so let's be really quick about it. Besides whistling and cameras and garbage cans, what else is Carlos Beltran good for?
So Carlos Beltran, of course, we can talk all night about how his candidacy, his ability to make the Hall of Fame is probably contingent on how the writers see the cheating scandal. But other than that, it took me a lot of research to really see Carlos Beltran for who Carlos Beltran was. He was actually a pretty good 5-tool player. He's one of 5 players to have 2,500 hits, 400 home runs, and 300 stolen bases. The other 4, Andre Dawson, Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez, and Willie Mays. And he's the only switch hitter to do it. So pretty good distinction there, pretty good company. And I mean, you're amongst some cheaters there. So if you did it clean, well, somewhat clean, I guess, unless you count banging trash cans not clean, but he did pretty good. Good 5-tool player, rookie of the year, 1999. Lots of all-stars, good glove out in right field, out in center field. It's very, very difficult to get a positive defensive WAR, especially in the outfield. And Carlos Beltran has managed to get a positive, I believe it's positive defensive WAR, out in the outfield. And I believe it's like 2. So it's close, but he got there. Yeah, it's 2. So pretty close. He has a 70.1 WAR, an above average bat, had a good glove, pretty good speed. So, all in all, Carlos Beltran had a pretty good baseball career. It's going to be very contingent on how the writers see the cheating scandal. But I think all evidence point to everybody that's involved, like directly involved in baseball. If you're not a fan, they pretty much let go. They're like, okay, we've got it. That's enough. Like, we're good. So I don't think the cheating scandal will take much into his candidacy, will be much of an effect into his candidacy, but you never know. We might be surprised here.
By the way, but for the record, it looks like Austin was citing baseball reference numbers when he was talking about the WAR and the defensive WAR. So yeah, the spreadsheet, just to reiterate, is Fangraphs. Kevin's asking if Carlos Beltran is a top 5 hitter, switch hitter. I would say so. I'm drawing a blank as to what other 4 switch hitters are out there. What Chipper Jones
and Mantle.
I mean, there's Chipper, but after that, I don't know. I mean,
Mantle and Chipper for sure are better, but then you're talking about Pete Rose. I don't know, Berkman.
Oh yeah. Well, Chipper's not even the best player by the name of Chipper. My favorite baseball player of all time by the name of Chipper is Chipper Wood.
It's a great name.
Yeah,
it's a great name.
If you want to say his first name, his last name first and his first name last, it'd be Wood Chipper. Starting pitchers.
I didn't think I was going to get that without you. Thank you.
It says the math teacher who didn't know what 2020 minus 1985 was.
You know what? I've had a long day. It's 7:30. Leave me alone.
All right. Who was the last guy I talked to? Oh, Austin. R.A. Dickey or Bronson Arroyo. Who's your sentimental favorite here as we move on to starting pitchers?
R.A. Dickey. It's not even close.
The knuckleball. It's a knuckleball, isn't it?
I mean, it's the knuckleball. It's his story. I love a good underdog. You want to talk about a true underdog story? It's R.A. Dickey. I mean, and it's a good thing I did the research on him. You want to talk about a true underdog story? This dude did not start as a knuckleball pitcher. He started as a hard throwing pitcher from the University of Tennessee. And he opens up in his book about how he was sexually abused in Tennessee at 8 years old by multiple individuals, and that stuck with him for a long time in his career. He used sports as an outlet, as a home. He played quarterback in high school, and then he got a scholarship to the University of Tennessee to pitch. Was a hard throwing righty. Was getting drafted by the Rangers and was poised to get an $810,000 signing bonus when the medicals came back and said that he was born without an ulnar collateral ligament, the UCL,
snap.
which is the ligament that they work on when you have Tommy John surgery. That whole ligament was missing. So the Rangers didn't like that, rescinded the signing bonus, and lowered it from $810,000 to $75,000. And he went to say it felt like he won the lottery and lost the ticket.
Jeez.
Not only that, when he was 21 years old, he won the bronze medal with the 1996 Olympic baseball team out in Athens. And he played. He played in the Ranger system a little bit, and of course he bounced around in his career. Didn't develop a knuckleball until 2005 when he was already a professional pitcher. And the reason why he developed the knuckleball is he didn't think he had a chance to get into the majors unless he developed a knuckleball. It was just a wild idea. He was like, let's try throwing a knuckleball and see if it sticks. And it worked. Ended up winning a Cy Young, developing a name for himself, obviously, after that Cy Young season. That was, I think, pretty much it for R.A. Dickey. But it's a great story to follow. Ended up turning what he thought was going to be a lackluster, short, minor career into a 15-year career. 3 years in a row leading the league in games started. Complete games and shutouts. He led the league in 2012. I believe that is the year he also won the Cy Young. It is the year he won the Cy Young. He led the.
I still hate that.
And 37 years old, ended up making a career out of it. So, it's a good story to follow. Bronson, I will give a shout out to Bronson Arroyo, one of the weirdest pitching deliveries I've ever seen in my life. But R.A. Dickey has a better story.
Yeah, and it's a good story. I still hate the fact that he won the Cy Young Award in 2012. I didn't think he deserved it or it was anything special. Something about knuckleball, it just pisses me off. Bronson Arroyo, did you guys buy his album?
I did not, but I know a lot of Red Sox fans did prior to the World Series. There was a big push for it, but that was before he admitted to using steroids. So
on the guitar?
Using steroids on the guitar? I'm not sure how that would work.
I thought you were saying that they bought his album, but then they found out that he was using steroids. Like what, for the guitar playing?
Oh, have you not heard the conspiracy theory behind his admission?
No, what?
So after David Ortiz's name came out from the anonymous 2003 testing, there's a conspiracy theory that says that Bronson Arroyo went to the media to say that he probably, as he put it, probably tested positive to draw attention away from Ortiz. I don't know that I necessarily believe that story, But it's interesting because it was when he was in Boston as well. And when they asked him about it, he goes, "Oh, well, I probably tested positive. I took this, and this, but he didn't actually test positive in that
Well,
test." And so it was really weird.
Well, now look at him now. He's going to lose points for Hall of Fame voting because he admitted to it.
Oh, damn.
Honesty doesn't get you anywhere, guys. That's why people play baseball, so they don't have to be honest with anybody. Let that linger for a little bit. All right. Oh, well, since I asked Austin, I asked now Kevin, Jared Weaver or Matt Cain, who's your sentimental favorite here?
Man, why do you got to ask me the steroid question and then you don't ask me about Jared Weaver? Come on.
Man, if we want to talk about somebody hitting somebody at 84 miles per hour, we could talk about that another time.
I wanted to tell that story.
Matt Cain is the choice.
Hell yeah.
Matt Cain has a weird career.
You all suck. No taste. No taste.
I don't have COVID.
Matt Cain wasn't super good when he first came up, but then all of a sudden he got elite for a few seasons, and then he threw a perfect game, and then he just kind of lost it. It's something that can't necessarily be specifically attributed to that day, but in 2012 he did throw his perfect game, and then he only had one more good season after that, and he wasn't old at all. I think he was 30 years old at the time, and he hung around for 4 or 5 more years, but was not good, sometimes even bad during that time. It's kind of an interesting story, being the best pitcher in 2010, probably, for that Giants World Series team, and really good still, maybe the best in 2012, and then almost getting left off the roster in 2014.
Wow.
For that run. It's just an interesting career for Matt Cain. Seems like a likable guy, a lot more likable than your boy Jared Weaver, Austin. But
he was liked until he was a punchline. Okay.
Red ass.
I mean, he's more likable than his brother. I'll say that.
They're the same. They're the same guy. Buck Weaver. No, Jeff Weaver. Sorry.
Jeff.
Earl Weaver. No, wait.
No, no, it was actually Wood Chipper's cousin, Basket Weaver.
Oh my God.
Basket Weaver.
Yeah.
Underwater basket.
Hey, I got to ask you, Kevin, because my theory has always been, I haven't really dug deep into the numbers, but my theory was that the Giants always had a revolving door of aces in those championship runs. So in 2010, I would suggest that Tim Lincecum might have been the best starting pitcher on that team, and then 2012 comes and Matt Cain carried that rotation, and then in 2014 Madison Bumgarner carried that rotation. Would you agree with that?
They were also supported by Ryan Vogelsong, who had a few good years on there as well.
Hey, by the way, Vogelsong, I found out this past year Vogel means bird in German, so it's actually Ryan Birdsong.
Interesting.
Yeah. But getting back to the question as to the revolving door of aces starting pitchers for those Giants, for that early Giants dynasty, would you agree with that, or have you seen other things that suggest that might not be the case?
Well, I mean, it does seem like that. In 2010, having both Lincecum and Matt Cain, that was almost not fair. They were both they were both really, really good at the time. Both obviously fell off in the not too distant future. Lincecum first, and then Cain, but. Definitely. You can definitely make the argument, skipping a year in between, 2010, 2012, 2014. And you can definitely make the argument that the best pitcher on the team changed each time. Bumgarner's a little overrated based on how good he was in the postseason. Yeah. But
by the way, I'm looking at it. Matt Cain was the best WAR pitcher in 2012. And Lincecum was the best WAR pitcher in 2010. And Bumgarner, regular season success or not, he basically carried that Giants team into the World Series.
Oh, no doubt.
In 2014 as well. All right, let's move on. Then we say goodbye to those two guys. And
my pick is Jared Weaver.
Oh no, really? Wow. And then we get to this portion of the. I mean, John Lackey's the new guy. And then Mark Burley is the returning, but I guess it's Austin. Who would you prefer, Mark Burley or John Lackey?
You know what, John? This one's tough for me because it was real fun to watch either one. I think I'm gonna go against the grain. I'm gonna go Mark Burley on this one.
Good. It's the
yeah.
correct choice.
Okay. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. So but both of them were good pitchers to watch. Both of them, I feel like, were horses. And Mark Burley was really a horse, but John Lackey, and I remember Felipe and I having a private conversation. It took some research on your part for you to be like, oh, John Lackey was actually a horse. I'm like, yeah, he did. He pitched a lot of innings, and for the most part, anyway,
I misunderstood you. I am so sorry. I misunderstood you. I thought you said he looked like a horse.
Oh, I mean, I guess he kind of did. He's got a long face like a horse.
I thought he was just sad. Anyway, go on. Sorry.
I think Mark Burley is probably held with a little more positive light than John Lackey. John Lackey has a very turbulent history and a very interesting image, I guess you want to say. He was a main culprit and was blamed for a lot of the collapse of the Red Sox in 2030. He and other pitchers, Clay Buchholz and people like that, were said to be eating fried chicken and drinking beer in the room.
And there ain't a thing wrong with that.
Yeah, amidst that 7-21 collapse. He describes himself as an asshole. He says he knows he's an asshole, but he's got grit, determination. I mean, it must have been every start. He argued with the manager about getting off the mound. He never wanted to get off the mound. But at the same time, the Red Sox, after that scandal, the Red Sox fans anyway, started to respect him a little bit because he pitched every 5 days with injuries. And there were a lot of questions when it came to the pitching staff after that, because everybody was going down. And John Lackey stayed there, and then he ended up having a good reputation with the Cubs because of that same thing. He played every 5 days. So it's a tale of two different John Lackeys. You either get the baseball player John Lackey, who was a horse and actually produced for a lot of his career, and then you have the teammate and the person who seems to be a little crotchety at times, and he likes fried chicken and beer apparently. The only other thing that I wanted to add in there is when he was on the Angels in 2002, he became the second rookie pitcher to start and win a World Series game behind Whitey Ford.
Oh, and look at that. Really quick, since you talk about Mark Burley, and I just confirmed because my memory was kind of hazy. Mark Burley had a chance to get 2 perfect games, not just 1, but 2 perfect games against the Texas Rangers, April 18, 2007. And I remember this because I was so mad. I was watching that game live. Mark Burley got squeezed by the umpire. At least I think he got squeezed by the umpire and walked Sammy Sosa on a very controversial call. And it was all for naught because immediately Mark Burley picked off Sammy Sosa at first base. Mark Burley did not give up any other base runner after that game. I think that should be a perfect game in my book. I mean, you got rid of the guy who walked. I know that's not officially a perfect game, but it's a perfect game in my book. I tell you what, just like Armando Galarraga, right?
Yeah.
His was a perfect game too, right? Armando Galarraga.
Yeah, it was. I mean, and it was the last out, right?
The penultimate out.
Yeah. So second last.
Jim Joyce.
Yeah, Jim Joyce. No. And Andy Pettitte is a cheater. I don't care what anybody says. Come on. Oh, well, he apologized.
Mark Burley also does have one more between the leg glove flip to first than John Lackey does.
Mercy. That's right.
But one less than Bartolo Colon.
Oh, really?
That's true.
I remember him doing it twice.
Yeah, he did it twice.
I don't know how he got his arm past his belly, but it worked out.
I know. And his looked smoother. Bartolo Colon's looked smoother than Mark Burley.
Yes. Young Bartolo, before he got really fat, was an athlete.
He was.
Yeah, speaking of fat fullback. Well, Andy Pettitte, he's a cheater. I don't want him in the Hall of Fame. And he's a Yankee. Yankees, they ruin everything. So have fun with that.
Where's Brian? Where's his graphic?
Yeah, I forgot about that. And this is an easy one. I mean, this is the relief pitchers. It's Billy Wagner criminally not in the Hall of Fame. Oops, I think I made this too big. Well, now we can't see Houston Street, but obviously Houston Street, former Rockies, A's, and Angels pitcher as well, right?
Yeah.
Oh, too many Angels on this damn podcast.
And the A's. I believe he's on the A's as well.
Yeah, I mentioned the A's. I remember. I think he was brought up by the A's, or maybe even
He was.
Was he with the Astros? No, his name is Houston. Never mind. Sorry. By the way, Mike Harvey, with all the talk about the Cardinals players, he says that this is the best show ever, which we have failed if Cardinal fans are saying that. Houston Street, I remember he helping me in fantasy baseball. That's the thing I talked to Austin about in a private conversation was this must be the first time where all of these players that are on the first year ballot, that I was there in terms of fantasy baseball from their beginning of their career all the way to the end of their career. So this is a surreal moment for me as well right now.
And this is really the first ballot for me that I saw the majority of these, or I saw the majority of all of these guys' careers.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, that goes along with the whole fantasy baseball thing and the real life baseball thing is that, yeah, K-Rod, John Lackey, I saw him in the 2002 World Series, make a legend of himself. And then the next year in 2003, I was reading articles, stay away from John Lackey. It's all fool's gold. Don't get suckered into believing that his postseason run was the actual pitcher that he is. He walks too many guys. He does have command issues. And how long was he on the league for? 15 years, I think, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
I mean, long time from 2002 all the way to 2017. Oh yeah, it's a long time. But anyway, that Houston Street, I want to move on really quick so we can finish up. And then there's K-Rod, another guy. I don't remember if he was a rookie or not, but I remember when he was he pitched in the playoffs in 2002 that they were comparing him to Mariano Rivera, and boy, the Angels, they couldn't wait to get rid of Troy Percival so they can live off of K-Rod and make him the ninth inning guy. Since you're the Angels fan, Austin, any memories that you want to share about either or of these players?
Houston Street had a very brief tenure with the Angels. K-Rod is probably held a little more favorably in terms of Angel fandom. He was that dude when he was with the Angels was filthy. Great fastball. He just overpowered people, struck. I just looked it up. He had a 28% career strikeout rate, led the league in save 3 times with the Angels. 4 of his 6 All-Star games are with the Angels. He broke the single season save record with the Angels at 62. The dude was just filthy, and in my opinion has a very underrated career, and I have a sneaky suspicion that he is going to be not as highly regarded as in the Hall of Fame discussion as other relief pitchers like Billy Wagner, although a lot of his numbers seem very similar to Billy Wagner, and Francisco Rodriguez has more saves than Billy Wagner. Francisco Rodriguez has the 4th most saves all time, while Billy Wagner has the 6th most saves all time. On top of that, it is very, very difficult for relief pitchers to be in the conversation for Cy Young awards. In 2004, Francisco Rodriguez finished 4th in Cy Young. In 2006, 4th in Cy Young award. In 2008, 3rd in Cy Young award, and 6th in MVP voting as a relief pitcher. And then he kind of had a dip in his career once he got off the Angels. He broke the single season record, and then immediately went to the Mets, had an all-star season, and then kind of tanked from there. And then he kind of had a resurrection later in his career with the Milwaukee Brewers. Had 2 more all-star seasons with the Brewers, and then kind of tailored off with the Tigers. And last time I heard, he's still trying to make a comeback. He played he played in the minor league system for the Nationals, and then he was playing on some independent ball team, still trying to make a comeback. So Francisco Rodriguez may be making a comeback, but I think that Francisco Rodriguez has a very underrated Hall of Fame career. In my opinion, Francisco Rodriguez is a Hall of Famer.
All right. Well, let's see how the panel voted for these guys. And there they are. How does that look on that should be big enough for everybody. But there's Austin, there's Felipe, Sean, my podcast partner on Sundays, Vince and Henry of the Dong City podcast, Melvin of the Baseball Cosmos, and Kevin from Kevin. Let's start with you, Kevin. You got Andruw Jones, Todd Helton, Bobby Abreu, Billy Wagner, Scott Rolen, Carlos Beltran, Jeff Kent. You didn't want to go for, how many is that? Is that 7 guys? You didn't want to go for the full 10?
I didn't. The only other one I was strongly considering, I guess, was K-Rod. As much as I like, Jimmy Rollins and even Mark Burley, I think they're just a touch below Hall of Fame level. Omar Vizquel, I can't do it. He was so bad offensively. I just can't. I mean, I can't in good conscience put a guy on my ballot that was that actively bad offensively, despite being a top 5 shortstop defensively of all time. But yeah, I went back and forth on Jeff Kent, but the sheer amount of home runs as a primarily second baseman kind of put him over the edge for me. Especially in the era that he played, there were only a handful of second basemen that hit home runs, and if you add them up, he was the best one at that. So that was what ultimately led me to include him. I think we pretty much talked about the rest of the guys. Plus, Todd Helton had a mean goatee, so that played a role, if we're being honest.
And the facial hair game,
and the backup quarterback of Peyton Manning for a while.
That's right. That's right.
I just want to point out that the Total Bases podcast hosts, we at the very least got 8 people on the ballot, whereas everybody else only got up to 6 for the most part, and then Kevin with 7. But yeah,
Sean's and mine are exactly the same.
Yep. I should have just done that instead, but I was kind of rushing at the end. Of course, I got the Big Ten. Yeah, I am in the Midwest, so Big Ten conference. But yeah, I once again voted for Jimmy Rollins, Mark Burley, and John Lackey. Austin kind of convinced me that, John Lackey, it might not show it, but if I'm going to use my 10th vote, it might as well be on John Lackey. So that's what I did. And of course, I honestly do believe that Mark Burley, knowing what we know about pitchers now and how much of a throwback he really was, you just saw, you guys talked about Mark Burley like he's a horse. Well, damn right he is. So let's go back to the starting pitching spreadsheet and sort this by innings pitched. Yeah. 4th since 1995 with a minimum of 1,500 innings pitched. He's 4th in innings pitched. So there has to be something to be said about. And remember, and it's not just innings pitched, you guys. That's the number of outs that he got over his career. If you really think about it, right? That's a lot of outs. It's a lot of outs. Anyway.
Yeah, and 2 of the guys ahead of him got popped for PEDs.
You know what? I'm just saying. And you want to do it by wins?
No, who beat him in innings pitched, along with behind the back, between the leg glove flips? Bartolo Colon.
Oh, but he's a cheater. Sorry.
Yeah,
he is a cheater.
Yep.
Number of wins, Mark Burley in 10th, top 10 since 1995. So for his era, he was a pretty damn good Hall of Fame worthy pitcher. There, I'm saying it. I'm hesitating, but I am saying it. And well, that is the ballot. But hold on, who makes it into the Hall of Fame, you guys? And it looks like we have 4 guys with 100% of the ballot. It's Scott Rolen, Andruw Jones, Carlos Beltran, Billy Wagner, and then Todd Helton also gets in at 85.7% of the vote. And it's 75%, right? That's the cutoff, right, guys? Yeah. Oh, just missing the cutoff was Bobby Abreu. Those damn Yankee fans in this panel. It's just a bunch of they don't appreciate greatness when they see it, I guess. Oh, but if it was listen, if it was Bernie Williams, oh, they would have voted 3 times for the guy just to get the numbers up. Anything that sticks out to you, or let's start with you, Austin, on the way that people voted on this one.
No, seems pretty, I mean, again, disrespect for K-Rod. I really think K-Rod is an underrated Hall of Fame player. I think he needs to get some respect, but it also doesn't surprise me. I think K-Rod is going to be at the bottom of the ballot, if not off the ballot. I would be really surprised if he gets anything over 20-30%, because I just don't think people hold K-Rod to the same light as Billy Wagner, even though they were very similar in terms of numbers and really in terms of how they pitched. Mm-hmm. They both had really hard fastballs and relied on the strikeout. So
Kevin, anything that sticks out with the way the people voted here?
I'm a little bit surprised that there wasn't, at least one person that held off on Beltran from the Astros stuff. I don't know how big of a role it's going to play in the actual voting. I'm sure it will keep him off of some ballots, but I'm a little bit surprised he got 100%. I do think that him performing well, and especially if he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, will kind of clear the way for Jose Altuve probably in a decade or so, to also potentially join him in the Hall. I think if somehow Beltran does not get in the first few years, then it'll still be kind of up in the air. I think Verlander should be in the clear because he's a pitcher. It was different. But I think Altuve would probably be the next guy who would be voted on. So if Beltran takes a while, then I wonder how that would go for Altuve.
It's a good point. But I think, me personally, I think you got to treat it as a standalone situation because Beltran was there well before. Jose Altuve already has a strike against him because he did beat out Aaron Judge. And if you piss off Yankee fans, and the whole baseball world is pissed off at you. And the double whammy came because, the buzzers, the trash cans, the cameras. So, but Beltran already had the pedigree. He already had a Hall of Fame career. One of the best all-around center fielders of his era. So I think it's to be treated a little bit differently. I also take offense that Justin Verlander was a pitcher, so he's immune from all this. No, he benefited from all that too. And when it was, his moral compass was nowhere to be found when it was time for him to speak out on it. I mean, he waited for Mike Fierce to say something first, right? So no. I mean, I guess if you're talking about, well, the media, the people who vote on this aren't going to see it, but you know what? I'll remember it. Where was Justin Verlander and his moral compass when we needed it the most? Also,
at home with Kate Upton.
Yeah. It's like we giggle like school children when we mention Kate Upton up here. I'll tell you what, man. The whole cheating thing, I predicted when I first came out, like, it's not gonna matter in a few years. They're gonna have intelligence rooms for these teams to set up shop and set up cameras and high visibility tools and gadgets to steal signs, whether electronically or visually, and just relay them as quickly as possible down to the to the manager and to the hitters and whatnot. And it's going to be sponsored by either Microsoft, Oracle, Apple, Google. Someone's going to sponsor it, and Major League Baseball is going to make out like a bandit, all because of Carlos Beltran's efforts to pioneer the way we steal signs in Major League Baseball. So there you have it, some science fiction to finish this evening. Final thoughts from you guys. Kevin, start with you. You're on mute.
Sorry, my my computer wasn't acting as it should. Just
go ahead.
My only final thoughts are that I'll be really disappointed if Billy Wagner doesn't go ahead and get in this year, and if Andruw Jones doesn't make significant progress towards making it. I think Todd Helton and Scott Rolen and a couple other guys will get in. But I will be disappointed if Billy Wagner, who you can make an argument is a top 3 reliever of all time, doesn't go ahead and get in, and that if Andruw Jones doesn't get close.
Austin, final thoughts before we leave for tonight.
I'm thinking about the Modern Era show that we did, and I believe we accurately predicted that only Fred McGriff would get in. So is that going to happen this time? And if it happens this time, it's a big class. That's what 5 or 6 people are getting in this year, and that's more than we've seen in a number of years.
It would be cool.
It would be cool to see a kind of a bigger class instead of one guy. You know what I mean? I know there's a lot of people that are like, "Oh no, only the Willie Mays of the world are getting in," and it's like that's not the game anymore. You're not going to see 3,000 hits, 600 homers, very often. You're just not going to see that anymore. So you need to change your perspective on what a Hall of Fame player is for this modern era.
Yeah, Mark Burley, Hall of Famer. Let's go. Let's get to it.
There's a lot of old timers who were a lot worse than some of the guys that are on this ballot.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that as some of the old journalists die out, that it'll be replaced by new guys who understand. Will do what we just did right now and look through it from a very statistical standpoint, because that is, to me, honestly, forget all the noise, forget all the awards, forget all the accolades. Those are the things that are voted upon. What matters at the end of your career is your numbers, right? How do they stack up against everybody else, against your peers, so to speak? Not just all time, but against your peers, the guys you played against, and what did you do to contribute to the game and your team, and did you leave the game better off than when you first arrived? You know what I'm talking about. It's tired. I can hear my daughter crying. All right, guys. Hey, thank you as always. One of the shows I love to do every year. I look forward to it every single year. So I thank you guys for joining me. For Austin, for Kevin, I am Felipe. We will see you next time. Take care, everybody.